Hi, welcome back. I forgot to introduce myself before. So I'm KP. I work for the partnership team. I'm based in London. And I'll be introducing the speakers for the rest of the day. So for the next session, we are going to be talking and we are going to be describing what is going to change on the Graph API. And this is very important because the Graph API is basically the primary way of getting information in and out of the Facebook platform. And it's not only being used by you guys, but it's also used by our own apps. So it's very important to keep on innovating and updating those APIs. And to do that, I'm going to welcome on the stage two F8 veterans. Harshdeep Singh is the engineering manager on the Graph API, and Simon Cross is the product manager of the Graph API and developer experience. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to F8. First of all, I just wanted to say thanks for spending the time with us today. You guys could be back in your offices or coffee shops coding the next version of your app, and instead, you chose to spend today with us. And that means a huge amount to us. So thank you for coming. I wanted to spend the next 45 minutes really talking about one key subject that you heard a lot about in Mark's keynote this morning: stability. Stability is critical. Facebook wants to be the place that you come to find products and services that help you build, grow, and monetize your apps. And we can't do a great job of providing critical experiences inside your products unless you can be sure they're stable. So we want to be a stable mobile platform. There is almost no critical feature more critical than login. It's the entry point to many of the experiences that you guys build, and you heard a ton from Eddie and Jeffrey just now about how the new Facebook login works. But underneath login, powering login, is the Graph API. You can think of login as a way in to the Graph API in order to read and post user data with Facebook's platform. We launched the Graph API in this very room almost 4 years ago to the day, at F8 2010. And it's become rather important to us. It's now the primary way you get data in and out of Facebook's platform. Every single day, we serve around 74.4 billion API requests to third-party developers. That's a big number. And earlier, you heard Mark say that that's not the whole story. We actually use the Graph API to power many of the experiences in Facebook's own iOS and Android apps. And if you add those into the equation, every single day, we're serving 470 billion API requests a day, nearly 500 billion API calls, which is just a mind-blowing number. So when we say stability is important, it's important to us just as much as it's important to you, because it's the way we're powering experiences on our own apps for hundreds of millions of people every single day. But the thing with the Graph API and Facebook's APIs in general is that they are not vanilla data stores. At the other end of the API is not a database. At the other end of the Graph API is people. The Graph API is a mutator on Facebook's own products, which, because needs and wants of people change, has to change too. If you think about Facebook's evolution as a product, when we launched, we didn't have Newsfeed. We didn't have photos. We didn't have events. We didn't have groups. We don't have many of the things you take for granted today. And we've added those things over time into the Graph API. And some of those things have changed. A great example is Facebook Places. We launched Facebook Places in August 2010, and it was so successful that we changed from check-in being a thing to location being an attribute of every piece of content you post to Facebook: videos, photos, statuses, and links. And yet, in the Graph API, the check-in object still exists. The check-in edge still exists. even though a check-in has not been created since November 2013. So when you serve 470 billion API requests a day, there is this tension. There's this tension between trying to make the API beautiful and clean and represent the state of the world as we know it today, and breaking experiences, which we really, really don't want to do. And because of the entropy in the API that is caused by the changes of the Facebook product, in the past, we haven't been as stable as we could have been. But we're going to change that. I want to take a quick aside and talk about some of the progress we've made over the last year, which brings us to where we are today. And we've been listening hard to developers. We've been asking questions, getting you guys to take surveys, and really finding out what you want us to do next. And two things come up again, again, and again. And I want to talk about some of the improvements we've made to these two things. Specifically, docs and bugs. With docs, we've completely rewritten, in the last 12 months, developers.facebook.com. New home pages, new pages about each of our major products. And we've rewritten the vast majority of our documentation around two axes: the thing you're trying to do and the platform on which you're trying to build. This is a significant step forward, and we're not done yet. We've also rebuilt the tools, the developer tools you use yourself to create and manage the Facebook integration across your iOS, Android, Windows Phone, even games consoles, and Canvas, if you have those things. And we focused on bugs. Bugs are a fact of life. They do happen. And it's on us to ensure that when they do, we provide you with a great experience. We need to do better, but we've been doing a lot over the last 12 months. One of the things we've been optimizing for is response time. Turns out that one of the most impactful things we can do is get back to you quickly. This is important for you guys because you need to know whether or not this thing is new or whether or not this is a known problem on Facebook's side. But it turns out it's also important for us because it helps us identify trends quickly. And if so, get to work. And I'm pleased to announce that in the last 12 months, we've worked hard on bug responsiveness, and now the time it takes for us to respond to most bugs, on average, has gone down by 55%. We're not done, but we've come a long way. Next, the API itself needs to be bulletproof. And when you're serving 470 billion requests a day to Facebook's own apps and 74.4 billion requests to third-party developers like you guys, that's critical too. And we've made a bunch of progress here. Over the last 2 years, our API response time is down by 40%. And on mobile, this is so critical because the latency of the wireless network is so high that every part of the request you can minimize the response time is critical. You don't want to be hanging around waiting for the API while the radio is talking. This is really important. What's also important is when you build against us and you call us, that we respond and that you know we're up and running. And we've reduced our already small downtime by 70% over the last 2 years too. Why? Because we know it's important to you and it's important to us. All of our incentives are aligned in making the Graph API and the platform in general a stable thing you can focus on building on. So let's get back to stability. There's one other thing. So stability is not a new concept. It's not something that suddenly everybody needs. But one change has happened that has made this need acute. And it's mobile. You go to an event 5 years ago, and this is what you would see. You go to the same event today, and this is what it looks like. We're moving to a world where everybody has a smartphone with apps on them, with your apps on them, the world over. Thing is, the physics of this ecosystem are so different to the web world many of us grew up in. In the world of the web, you can build a new version of your app, press deploy, goes to your servers, and the next time the browser refreshes, boom, everyone gets the new version. Which means You can fix things really quickly, and you can iterate really quickly. And if stuff goes down, you can fix it very fast. That's not the world we live in today. The world we live in today is where you code in and package your software as binaries, which go into stores, get put on people's devices, that go in their pockets. So the three main characteristics of the world we live in today is, number one, the software that you write is no longer in your hands. It's in people's hands. Secondly, it takes a long time for people to upgrade your app. People do not immediately download updates. And thirdly, because of that, there may be multiple instances of your app in the wild at any one time. And supporting that is just a fundamental of the world we live in today. So, what happens if we take these physics and overlay the support model we've given to you in the past? Let's imagine you're a very conscientious developer, and we announce a breaking change because we have to deprecate something or we want to announce something new. It's pretty common that you don't want to throw away your roadmap. So let's say, for sake of argument, you put this in your very next sprint, code the fix, put the app through review, and it takes, let's say, a month to get that binary to be downloadable by real people. What happens next? This chart represents the amount of time it takes for a given version of Facebook's iOS app or a future version of Facebook's iOS app to make it into the hands of a percentage of our developers. Roughly, it takes around 40 days for a version of Facebook for iOS to make it into the hands of 80% of our daily active people. On Android, it's a very similar curve, but a little slower. Turns out it takes around 80 days for a given version of Facebook for Android or a subsequent version to make it onto a percentage of our daily active users' devices. And this is what we give you today, a 3-month breaking change window. So, even if you're the most conscientious developer in the world, we could be breaking experiences for 15 to 25% of your users. That is uncool, and we're sorry. So we're going to fix it. We're going to fix it with a bunch of things. I talked earlier about the entropy that has occurred in the Graph API because it's not a pure data store, because it's the window into a product which needs to change and evolve with people who use Facebook. So first, we're launching a brand new version of the Graph API. And then we're going to launch another version. And then we're going to launch another version. So what we're really doing is launching API versioning. It's kind of weird that it's taken me to 10 minutes to get to something that we should have done a long time ago. But we've wanted to do this for a long time, and we're really excited about what this means for us and you. For you, it means when you code against the API, you can be sure that that code is going to work for 2 years, because we're adding a 2-year stability commitment for core APIs. Versioning also means that you can support multiple versions of your app being in the wild at any one time. And for us, because we no longer have this tension between breaking things, fixing, like removing entropy and kind of fixing things, it means that as we release future versions of the API, they can be beautiful, clean, consistent, easy, and just generally awesome. Because we want to power these absolutely critical experiences within your apps, you need to depend on us. And so as you heard Mark talk about in the keynote this morning, we're also announcing a 48-hour bug fix SLA for the most major bugs. So how do you get started? How do you use all this good stuff? It's super simple. From now on, you can call the Graph API with a version number, and when you render any of our dialogues, you can add the version number too. But the vast majority of you guys will use SDKs to interact with the new version of the Graph API and the new login. So today, we're releasing brand new versions of our iOS and Android SDKs, both of which, by default, are coded against Graph API 2.0 and give you the new Facebook login. We're also announcing a new version of our JavaScript SDK, and we've completely rewritten our PHP SDK from the ground up to take advantage of the language. All right. Good. Is Fosco in here? Anyway, yes, long time coming. Really glad we've done it. And it takes advantages, finally, of the language constructs in PHP 5.4. And we have a brand new version of our Unity SDK coming soon. With the iOS and Android SDKs, you get the new version of the Graph API and the new login just by using the SDK. With the JavaScript SDK, in the init, you now specify the version you want to call. Notice that the new JavaScript SDK is at a new URL, so you'll need to update to the new JavaScript SDK too. Now, this idea of versioning needs to run through everything, like a rich seam. And so, unsurprisingly, from today, when you use our developer tooling, you'll now see version drop-downs that make it really clear which version of the API you're calling and make it super simple to switch between versions so you can exactly see the behavior between version 1, version 2, and the other versions we'll release going forward. Now, we want to make it super easy for you to understand how to use this new stack. The best way to do that is with documentation, which we've shipped this morning, and with sample apps. And so today, we're releasing a brand new version of our canonical game app, Friend Smash, with SDKs on with sample code on GitHub for iOS, Android, and web, all ready to go. How long do you have to upgrade to this new world? As Eddie said in the last talk, those physics of this mobile ecosystem, right, this upgrade curve, they're with us today. So getting you guys to adopt these changes right now, immediately, would be really hard. So here's how it's going to work. If you have an app that uses Facebook today, you're already using Graph API v1.0. That's going to exist for a year from today until April 30th, 2015. From today, we have Graph API 2.0, which will exist for at least 2 years. New apps created today or in the future will use Graph API 2.0 and the new login by default going forward. And periodically, we'll release new versions of the API, each of which will live for 2 years. At least. So I talked about this need for stability because we want to power critical experiences, and the physics of the mobile ecosystem mandate that this is the way things work. But it was also another opportunity. It was an opportunity for us to look at many of the things that you guys are trying to do with the Graph API today and build new things to make those easier. And so to talk about those things and some other of the new things we're launching, please welcome the engineering manager of the Graph API and the guy responsible for that stack that serves 470 billion API requests a day, Harshdeep Singh.
Thanks, Simon. So with Graph API 2.0, we had the opportunity to look into what sort of social experiences you guys wanted to bring into your apps that were hard with the current API. We identified 2 very clear cases. One is building social context around content in your apps. And the other is building apps that are powered by the places the user has been. Let's start with social context. So we use social context as a signal to make decisions in everyday life. You may not even realize it. If my friends go to a restaurant, I'm more willing to check it out. If they like a movie, I might give it a try or not, depending on who those friends are. But we use friend recommendations to make a lot of decisions. Now, it's possible to bring these sort of social interactions into your applications, but it's hard. One company that I think has done a really good job here is TripAdvisor. So here I am in TripAdvisor trying to book a hotel in Las Vegas. Immediately, I'm drawn to my friends who've already been there, and I can see which hotels they stayed at. I'm more comfortable booking a hotel where I know my friends enjoyed staying at. So no wonder, when TripAdvisor added social context to their hotel listings, their user engagement went up by 26%. So there's tremendous value in building these social interactions into your applications. But the current state of the API makes it a little hard. Let's say you wanted to show me all of my friends who like a particular page. You would have to check the like status for each one of them separately. In fact, what you would do is you'd get the complete list of their likes, so you can do this efficiently on your servers. That's a lot of work. Not anymore, because now all you have to do is query the context field on the page object. By default, it returns an edge called friends who like, that returns my friends who like that particular page. It works like any graph edge. You can page through the friends, and you can get the total count in the summary data. But this is not the only context edge. We're launching the context field on different types of objects, and on each of those objects, it exposes different types of context. For example, for people, you might be interested in which friends you have in common with them and which pages both of you like. For pages and open graph objects, I already talked about friends who like. But if the page or the OG object is a song or an artist, you can check which of your friends have listened to it. If it's a video, you can check which of your friends have watched it. And for the apps that belong to the same business, you can check which of your friends use that app. And this is just the beginning. Going forward, we'll add more context edges. We'll add the context field to other types of objects, just to make sure that it's easy for you to bring these social context kind of interactions into your applications. So coming to the next part, the part that we thought was hard to do with the API was location. Building your apps that take care of, that use which places I've been to. The places I've been tell my story. Where do I come from? Where did I go to school? The vacations that I had, the things I did, the places I like to hang out. There's a lot of memories in there. And it's easier than ever to collect those memories because of the phone that you have in your pocket that has a GPS. As Simon mentioned, we launched Places in August 2010. And since then, users have created over 32.8 billion pieces of content that are tagged with Places. This content includes statuses, photos, videos, links. There's a lot of rich history here that we want to make possible for users to bring into your applications where you can build experiences around it. So, tagged places. As simple as it sounds, a list of places that I've been and the time when I went there. This is the same data that powers the map on Facebook profile. And there's also a new permission that's called tagged places that the user needs to grant the app for access to this data. And obviously, we're also launching a social context edge that, given a place, would tell you which of your friends have been tagged there. Now, these are the APIs that we think will help you build rich social experiences into your applications. And these are only available in Graph API 2.0. If you attended the previous talk with Eddie, you must have seen that with the new Facebook login, me/friends returns friends who also use the app. However, we identified a couple of cases where it's important to also get a list of people who don't use the app yet. These are inviting and tagging. So let's say you're playing a game, and you want to invite your friends who don't play the game yet to play the game with you. Games are better that way. That's how Facebook games work. And you want the users to not have to go outside the game's experience to invite your friends. And you want the friends to be listed in a ranked order so that people who are more likely to accept the invite are shown at the top. Straightforward API, invitable friends. List of people who don't use the app yet, their names, their profile pictures, everything you need to render a nice invites dialog. And the IDs here are tokens that work with Facebook request dialog so that the user can actually send the request. The other use case is tagging. Simon and I go for a run sometimes, and he likes to use his Nike Plus running app. This is a recent run, and he wanted to share it on Facebook, tagging me in it. I don't use the app yet. But he can open up this tagging UI, which lists all of his friends, finds me through the type ahead at the top, tags me in the post, and this is what the post looks like on Facebook. Because of the tag, the post is more social. It's a richer experience. But I don't use the app yet, and that should not matter. You should be able to get the list of people who can be tagged to posts, irrespective of whether they use the app or not. The API to do this is exactly the same as invitable friends. It's called taggable friends. except that the friends that you get here may or may not use the app. The IDs that you use here, the IDs that you get in this response, can be used to create, like whenever you use an API to create any sort of content on Facebook, photos, videos, statuses, open graph actions, you name it, these IDs will work to tag people in those contents. So these are the new endpoints that we're launching with Graph API v2.0. For some of the other structural changes, just welcome back, Simon.
Cool, thanks, Harsh. So we're pretty excited about social context and the Tag Places API. Like, they're just really hard things to do, right? Like, especially social context. Like, that computation is not easy. And like, our infrastructure like was built for this. Like, we do it billions of times a day, like in our own servers. And so it's awesome to give you guys like such a simple API that essentially can power annotation, social annotation, alongside the content in your app. So I want to talk about a couple more things that I want you guys to go away with, so you have everything you need to upgrade to Graph API v2.0 and the new Facebook login, which are coupled together, right? The way you get the new Facebook login is by moving your apps to be coded against Graph API 2.0 and the 2.0 version of the login dialog and our modern SDKs. But one change we're making in the Graph API 2.0 as well is the move to AppScope user IDs. And this is to protect people's information. AppScope IDs work like this. Today, let's say Harsh has an ID of 123. When he logs into an app, that app sees the ID 123. But going forward, when Harsh first logs in to an app that's been updated to be coded against version 2 of the Graph API, or is a new app created from today onwards, when Harsh logs into those apps will see an ID for Harsh, which is specific to that application. This helps protect people's information. We wanted to make this transition as simple as possible for you guys. And so I just wanted to run through some of the design principles we worked to when coming up with this plan. Number one, for the logged in users you have today, the ID will not change. This is really important because you have databases keyed, in many cases, off a Facebook user ID. And you get to keep those. Second, you're in complete control of when you transition to v2 of the Graph API and the new login, and therefore app-scoped IDs. The first time you'll begin to see app-scoped IDs be emitted by the Graph API is when a user first logs in against an app coded against version 2 of the Graph API. Now, many of you already have your databases set up, and we didn't want you to have to do any database migrations or schema changes or anything like that. So with app-scoped IDs, the ID we emit going forward is of exactly the same format of the IDs we emit today, a 64-bit integer. And we've identified a couple of key cases where we wanted to make it super simple for you to share app-scoped IDs across your development app fleet, and also in the cases where you operate multiple applications. So they're the things I want to dive in to a little bit further. Here's the detail of how app-scoped IDs will actually work going forward. Today, you're using Graph API v1.0. And let's say I've logged into your app in the past. Because you see my original ID, that's not going to change. No matter, not tomorrow, not in 3 months, and not even when I use a version of your app that's been updated to be coded against version 2 of the Graph API. The ID you have for me today will not change. However, let's say Harsh has not used your app before, and he downloads your app from the Google Play Store and logs in. And this version of your Android app has been updated to be coded against version 2 of the Graph API. In this case, because he's first logging in to a version 2 migrated app, we'll emit an app-scoped ID for Harsh. But let's say you haven't updated your server yet. Your server is still calling Graph API 1.0, or Harsh has an iPad and downloads your app from the Apple App Store and uses that and that is still coded against Graph API 1.0. You'll still see the same ID for Harsh, in this case, his AppScript ID. So once we've emitted an ID for someone, that is consistent across platforms, across time. So let's talk about these two key use cases that we wanted to solve for, helping you with AppScript IDs where you operate several apps or in testing and development. A great example of this case where people operate multiple apps is game studios. For example, the guys right next door, Zynga. Zynga doesn't just have one Facebook app ID. They operate many games. In this case, Farmville 2, Zynga Poker, Words with Friends, Hit It Rich, and Castleville Legends. If I play Farmville 2 and Words with Friends, it's important to Zynga to be able to say, hey, you know what? You should probably play Castleville Legends 2. To do that, Zynga needs to know my ID across the games I play. So we've built a brand new API called the Business Mapping API. The Business Mapping API, when you call it, returns the user's IDs in the other applications they use owned by your business. And this allows you to map a given user ID across the applications that your business runs. A critical part of this is Facebook knowing the applications your business operates. And so to that, we've integrated with a new tool, which is going to be increasingly important to you as you integrate with Facebook going forward, Business Manager. Business Manager is a new tool that is the single place where you manage all of the Facebook assets that your business owns. For example, Facebook pages, ad accounts, and now applications. So to set up your business on Business Manager is super simple. You go to your application's advanced settings, scroll down, and click Get Started with Business Manager. Then you'll be taken through a beautiful onboarding flow that explains exactly what you need to do to set up your business on Facebook. It requires that you link the business first with your business's primary Facebook page. So it's a good idea to either speak to the person who has access to that page if you don't. Once you've gone through the flow and set up your business, you start adding your applications. So you paste in your app IDs, and once you've done that, Business Manager knows about the applications your business owns. And from then on, when you call the Business Mapping API, it will return for this user the other IDs of this user in the apps they play that your business manages. Business Manager is going to be increasingly important going forward, so it's awesome to get set up on it now if you need the Business Mapping API. So the other scenario that we wanted to solve for was during testing and development. And we could have solved this probably in the same way. But we took an opportunity to do something a bit better. And we looked at a bunch of the workflows that you guys have as developers, and we found a bunch of pain points. If you build games, for example, on Canvas, it's pretty common that every single developer in your team will have their own Facebook app ID in order to render the game in their own Canvas frame. That could be like 50 Facebook app IDs in your fleet. Even regular applications probably have one Facebook app ID they use for production and 2 or 3 or 4 they use in testing, development, staging, and QA. This is a pain. It's a pain because when you create one of these new apps, if somebody joins your team, you have to manually copy over every setting from the production app to get them spun up, which is pretty dull. The other part of it is suddenly you have these applications each individually with many people in your company having access to different ones. And that gets very difficult to manage very quickly. And we want to solve both of these things as well as solving for AppScript IDs. So today we're launching test apps. Test apps are going to be awesome. They're so simple. It's all right. Good. Yeah, I'm pretty stoked about this as well. This was basically built by one developer, Amy, who joined our team about 2 months ago, I think. And she just did all of this. So if you meet Amy later today, say thank you to her. So it's super simple. Test apps are children of your production app. What this means is when you begin a new project, first create your production app, but then you can create up to 50 test apps that are children of your production app. This is how they work. Number one, when a user emits, when you get an app scoped ID for someone from your production app, you can be sure that if they get an app scoped ID in your test app, they will be the same. Which means if you want to use a copy of your production database in testing, development, and QA, which is a pretty common thing to do, it's possible. In fact, it's easy. Number two, simple spin up. When you create these test apps, we take a copy of the production app settings and put them in the test app, so you're good to go. Next, these are their own apps, right? They have their own app ID, and they have their own settings. What this means is, if you want to try something new, you can mess around with it in a sandbox, a test app, before you apply those changes to your production app. You know, that feeling when you're like, this app is worth millions of dollars a day to me. You don't have to do that anymore. You can test everything on test apps before you push those settings to your production app. And we've added centralized role management, which means you have one place within your production app to see all of the roles everyone in your team has on your entire fleet of test and production apps. Thing is, this sets us up to do a bunch of cool stuff going forward, right? We have a ton of plans in the works for test apps. We're really focused on the developer experience and making integrating with Facebook super simple and fast and easy. Having this ontology is one of the first things we need to do to unlock a bunch of value going forward. This is what they look like. From today onwards, there's a new tab in your app dashboard. Tap on it, guess what? There's a new setting that allows you to create test apps. You can create up to 50. Probably one of the best patterns is to name each of those test apps after their purpose or after the person that's going to be using them, but it's entirely up to you. These apps have a slimmed-down version of the settings because a test app doesn't need to do everything a production app does. So it means they're super simple. But they can do everything you need to be able to do. And then this is what the centralized role management looks like. On your production app, there's a brand new tab called People. And this lists out all of the people who have access to any role on your production app. And you can edit them and remove them if you need to in one place. So we're super excited about these products that we've built, both because they help you with app script IDs, but because they help the developer experience, right? They help you every day. And especially if you're small, seconds and minutes shaved off your workflows matter. We care about those things too. So the two products we're announcing to help you with app script IDs are the Business Mapping API and Test Apps. So lastly, I wanted to come back to this point about stability. As I said at the start, Facebook wants to be a place you can come to find products and services that help you build, grow, and monetize your apps, and build critical experiences into your products. Now, to help you with all of the stuff you've heard today, I wanted to call out the Developer Garage. Developer Garage, I don't know, whatever. I'm British, sorry. I say that a lot. So at the back of the, near where you came in, like as you walk back to the front on the left-hand side, we have like 30 people from Facebook waiting to answer your questions. You heard about Login Review and the new login, anonymous login, earlier in Eddie's talk. They are there to help you. We have pre-reviewed every single person's apps in this room with a handout you can take away to tell you how you did. So please go hang out with them if you have any questions. Me and Harsh will be down the front next, for the next few minutes. But I want to quickly summarize everything we've talked about, both in this session and in the previous session. With Graph API 2.0 and the new Facebook login, we're focused on stability. And we've given you 12 months to migrate your existing apps to this new stack because we understand the physics of the mobile world we all live in today. Versioning systematically sets us up to provide an amazing developer experience going forward, great stability, and a world in which many devices, many apps, many versions of an app exist in the world at any one time. With a 2-year stability commitment for core APIs, those core APIs, by the way, are the things you need for sharing, login, requests and invites, our SDKs, and a like button. We plan to add much more things to the bucket of core products going forward. With the Tag Places API and the Social Context API, we're giving you 2 new tools to make great new experiences in your applications. And with the Taggable Friends API and Invitable Friends API, you can build experiences that include people who don't use your application. The transition to app-scoped IDs is completely under your control. We didn't want to have like a big, scary switch that you flipped and everything changed. It's a very clear system. It's very well documented on the developer site as of today, and we want to put the control into your hands. And lastly, with Test Apps and Business Manager, we have new tools to help you build and manage your estate, and we're really focused on docs, bugs, and tools. Guys, thank you so much again for spending the time with us at F8. We really appreciate you spending a whole day with us. We realize how important that is to you. Me and Harsh will be up the front for the next few minutes to answer your questions. Let's build. Thank you.
If you want to come back,